Well, staying in that province, but moving now to the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, National Treasury is going to donate 55 million rand to deal with the municipality's ongoing water crisis and avert day zero. Dam levels are currently less than 20% full. Let's get an update now from Barry Martin, Senior Director for Water and Sanitation in Nelson Mandela Bay. Mr. Martin, thank you so much for joining us. So I'm just trying to remember where dam levels were a few months ago. Are we getting better or getting worse in terms of dam levels in your area?
We are getting slightly better. And firstly, good evening to you and good evening to your listeners. I must indicate also, just to put everything into context, around about June, July this year, we essentially only had about 1 to 2% effective dam storage left in our dams, of water left in our dams that we would sustainably abstract. Currently, we're sitting at about around 13% of the 18.97% that we can sustainably abstract. So from that point of view, we are in a better position, but as they say, by no chance out of the woods yet, because effectively we're still under 20%. A dam like Impofu Dam is sitting below at 9.3%, which is obviously precariously very low. It hasn't been that low ever since it's been constructed. So we're in a very bad situation at this point in time, and continues to be that way.
And being in the Eastern Cape, you're a winter rainfall region. So are you heading into your dry season? Am I correct?
Not necessarily winter, more a spring, September, October rain, and October is virtually gone now. So we haven't had that expected rain that we anticipate. So for the next 6 months, which is from now until the end of March, is essentially our dry period, as you've indicated, which is normally our hottest and our periods of highest water consumption, but also the period when we have holiday makers coming to the coast as well. And as we also supply the coastal towns of Jeffreys Bay, Humansdorp, and Francis Bay, so they will all come off the same water resources. So we expect a spike in our water consumption during that period as well.
Yeah, so dam levels quite a bit fuller than they were at the worst point. But as you've explained so well, you're really not out of the woods yet. So this 55 million rand coming from National Treasury, how's it going to help you deal with the water crisis?
One of the critical projects that we've identified is the upgrade of Stanford Road and Motherwell Booster pump stations, which was constructed as part of Nooitgedacht Phase 2 and commissioned in about 2017. These pump stations obviously need to be upgraded with the additional water that we're getting with Nooitgedacht Phase 3 coming online, because currently, normally you have a standby pump set in a pump station. Currently, we're using those standby pump sets to make maximum use of all the water that is available at Nooitgedacht currently. So with the upgrading of the pump stations, we will create additional spare capacity and additional pumping capacity to make the pump station effectively to be able to transfer between 120 to 135 megalitres per day, of which we are currently can only maximize around about 100 to 105 megalitres per day.
All right, so that's something that I would imagine is going to take a bit of time, and I would imagine it is a race against time. That I know you've been encouraging residents to use as little water as possible. I presume those restrictions are still very much in place. Do you think that you'll be able to get through the coming dry months and keep water consumption at the right levels?
Our water consumption remains a bit too high. For the month of October, it's crept up to just under, it was at about 260 in September. It's crept up to about 268 now at the end of October. That is a bit of a worrying sign. But we've also looked at our water projections, the available water that's in the dams. What can we sustainably take off out of the dams for the next 12 months virtually to the next, shall I say, rainy period that will come from June to August, September, October next year. And the calculations with the modelling that was carried out by DWS indicates that if we stick to the water restrictions, take maximum water from Nooitgedacht, use limited amount from Churchill in Impofu as well as Lurie dams, we probably could ride through the hot period. But it is so finely balanced that any break or power outages what we experienced in the last 2 to 3 weeks, we actually have to take water from other resources that we actually want to keep in storage for the protracted period. So we are actually managing the water at a quite fine balance, but we still have a deficit of around about 30 to 40 megalitres per day, because our target remains 230 megalitres per day, and we're taking about just under 270 out at the moment.
So is it possible to say, because it sounds like, as you say, you're not, people are not using as little water as they should be. So when is day zero? I mean, have you set a date? Are you saying, look, day zero is not going to happen? What is your approach to that? Because it worked quite well in Cape Town. You know, it scared the living daylights out of everybody. And I remember going down to a hotel there and there were no plugs. So you couldn't run a bath and things like that, you know, and people were really on board. So is there a day zero actually set for Nelson Mandela Bay? Is that approach you're taking?
It is. We can't draw an exact parallel between ourselves and Cape Town, because some of our water do come from Nooitgedacht, and that is available to us. But if we maintain our high water consumption, a day zero could become quite a reality. And as I explained earlier on, that day zero earlier, around about June, July this year, was influenced by that we just had about 1 to 2% of water storage left. That we could take out from the dams on the west. But fortunately, with the rain, that has now been pushed back into the future. So with us having about 13% available water left, that day zero, proverbial day zero, is pushed out into the future. And as we save water and get a little bit more runoff in the dams, that is progressively put into the future. So it's actually not a hard and fast number that you can put on, because 2/3 of our water that is currently being supplied to the metro actually comes from Nooitgedacht.
All right. Well, thank you very much for explaining that. Good luck with those pump station upgrades. That's what you're going to spend the money from National Treasury on, and that constant juggling act, just trying to keep enough water into those areas. Much appreciated. That was Barry Martin, Senior Director for Water and Sanitation in Nelson Mandela Bay.